For me, it falls under three kind of just pretty basic categories, right? Fire,
Right.
flood, and blood.
Oh boy, it rhymes. All right, here we go. Another cash flow digest. You're probably wondering, where the heck is Matt Fairclough? Where's Matt Fairclough? Well, I think he's tumbling at the bottom of the slope someplace up in Killington, Vermont, because that's where he is this weekend. So I'm pitching. I'm going to do my best version of Matt Fairclough. Actually, I'm going to do my best version of Hervé Francois, because that's going to be the better version of my best version of Matt Fairclough. So guys, thank you for coming on another weekly edition of the Cash Flow Digest. We got so much to go over. This could be a pumped up, exciting show. All right, folks. Now, I told you I have a special guest for you on today. There is no Cash Flow Digest that I host ain't special unless I bring on a special guest. And this is one of my favorite special guests because we just get each other. We damn near finish each other's sentences. It's absolutely amazing. And I think I provide a lot of relief for her because one of our other partners that she needs to work very, very closely with sometimes has a little difficult time. He gives her a difficult time. He gives her a hard time. So I'm just like an oasis for her. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my compadre, my partner in crime, Tara Smiley. Tara, head of, I don't care if he's not here. I'm going to call you for today's show. Head of asset management. Tara has spearheaded the creation of DeRosa Living. We went ahead and brought all
Wait, wrong side. There we go.
Yeah, well, look at that. She got the logo.
Right? Logoed up.
I got to give me one of those logos so I can have my Nike logo, right? So, yes, the Snail Queen. So, very nice. So, Tara, head of DeRosa Living for us. We are now managing all of our properties in-house, everything that we own in Lexington, Kentucky, as well as in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and things going on further. So, Tara, I would tell you, get your ticket ready. I might have to send you down to Knoxville, Tennessee. So just stay tuned.
Let's go.
All right. So Tara, the reason why I'm so glad that you're pumped up, because we're going over a topic today that I don't think that we have addressed before. We always talk about the exciting reasons to get into multifamily, right? In regards to how it's better than getting into single family because your occupancy is not going to drop as much. The cash flow, some people like to call it mailbox money. I don't think it's mailbox money. Damn, you're not even passive income because we're always working actively on our properties, even though it's passive income. Never, right? But all of the great benefits, right? And it has taken care of, it has made people very, very wealthy, right? As well as the investors, right? But at the end of the day, we also know that there comes times and tribulations, issues that come up with owning these properties. And when these issues come up, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to do about it? Is there any protocols, methods, methodologies, strategies that we can put in place to deal with these issues? Folks, real talk here, in the spirit of full transparency. We were having an internal call the other day. We were having a good time. We were talking about growth and strategy, where we're going to go, what we're going to do next, and so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, Tara said, hey, guys, I got to jump off. I'm like, Tara, where you going? You can't leave me. You know, you're my compadre. Where you go? She said, I got a 911. I got a 911. I got to go. I got a 911 on one of my properties. Yep. I said, all right, Tara, go handle the 911. I had no idea what 911 issue Tara had to deal with at one of our properties. Tara told us later on exactly what happened with one of our properties. And I'm not going to share. I'm going to let Tara share it. But it was scary. It could have been devastating. But at the end of the day, we realized it's not only a learning moment, but it's also a teaching moment on how to deal when you have a 911 situation at your properties. Folks, these things happen. We wish it were just a resident calling to the leasing manager saying that they have an issue with their bathroom or with their kitchen sink or their overhead lights or something like that. Yes, you're going to have those day-to-day, week-to-week issues, but sometimes you're going to have more serious, more gravity issues. And so, Tara, 911, explain to us first how in the world of asset management, what does that mean and what specifically happened at one of our properties?
So Hervé, you're right. Like it's not a if it's going to happen. It's going to happen, right? Like it's going to happen. And the grace is how much homework have you done and what are you prepared for? And so right. from an emergency 911 standpoint, it falls under three kind of just pretty basic categories, right? Fire, right. Flood, and blood.
Oh boy, it rhymes. Scary that it rhymes.
It rhymes and
that it rhymes.
It's right. And you're not going to forget about it. Fire, flood, and blood. And so
right.
There's some basic elements that are required for each of those things. And number one is rubber gloves. Can't stress that enough.
I'm going to ask you where we're going with this.
Rubber gloves and really good footwear. So
I like it.
You got to be prepared, right? So
right.
If you ask me what's in the trunk of the Jeep right now, I can guarantee you rubber boots and a box of gloves. Guaranteed.
Okay. Fair enough. Got you.
The reality was on Monday, like Hervé says, we're in a company-wide meeting. Like this is our internal kind of get together, Wednesday rather, internal get together meeting. And my teams know if they need me, you call me. And if I don't answer, it's because I'm on a call or I'm on a meeting or, I'm doing something. But if it's an emergency and it falls under the fire, flood, or blood, the bat signal, the 911 code for me is like, you just keep on calling, right? And so clearly it's an emergency. I've gotten 3 calls back to back. We had a fire. And, so I've got our regional director on the line with me. We've got a fire. I'm headed there now. I need you to be aware. I'm like, okay, you're driving. You focus on that. I'm going to get on the phone with our manager. First and foremost, are you safe? Are you okay? Are our staff safe? And are they okay? How big? How many units? And so you're really just kind of in intelligence gathering mode at that point, right? What are we working with? And so the more information I have to know about what we're working with, the better the decision-making process I can make, right? And so there's a lot of moving parts, and it's always amazing to me. I wish it were different, but it's always amazing to me, specifically with fire, that residents don't call the fire department. They call you. Okay? They call you. And so like, hey, we've got a fire over there. And your first question needs to always be, have you called the fire department? The answer is no. Great. Get off the phone with me right now, because that's what I'm going to go do. Right? So sometimes in those emergent situations, logic fails us. Right. Yes. And so the common sense thing we accidentally forget to do. And so it's our job as asset owners, asset managers, property managers to fill in those blanks. When logic fails somebody else, don't worry, because we got a plan for that. Right.
So we got a plan.
We got a plan. Right. And so it's getting all of the emergency service coordinators involved. So we've got fire, we've got PD, we've got EMS rolling. Do we have an injury? Well, we did have an injury, and luckily it's very small, but we've got an injury. So we're documenting all these things at the same time. One of the things that I cannot count enough lucky stars on is that where this property was, the team, they knew their jobs, they knew their roles, they had their plan, and they put it in motion. So the minute that the word fire drops, I've got one staff member calling fire, the fire department, call 911. Let's get those sirens rolling. The rest of my team is headed to that building to assess, to make sure it's safe for them to even enter the building. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. You still got to pay your rent. Right? So I've got a team that's evacuating a building. They're knocking on doors. Right. They're getting people out. They're picking up. It happened relatively early in the morning. Kids weren't, were off from school that day. So we're picking up little people and carrying them. We're helping residents, and we're getting everybody to a safe place. And the knowing their roles, having that plan set forth, making sure that everybody on that team knows their job, knows what the plan is, knows what the next steps are and how it plays out, is really the secret sauce to success.
I got you. You. So Tara, and listen, Facebook users, thank you so much again for coming on. If you have any questions for Tara, please go ahead. Upload it, bring them in, because I know I have some. Tara, at what point do you guys start investigating? Was this resident error? Was this potentially landlord error, because it might have been an electrical problem that caused the fire, and so on and so forth? And once you find out the answer to that, is there any kind of impact in regards? Now we start talking about insurance, not only property insurance that we have, but also resident insurance, specific if there's any kind of damage to their personal property.
So that process starts literally the minute that it happens, right? So the minute that I get the phone call, I'm documenting, okay, this is the time that I was notified, because I'm going to want that information to be able to provide to our insurance guy, right? The residents, if there was anybody injured, we're documenting all of that. We're taking photographs. I've got one team member that's running to pull the lease jacket so that we know who's on that lease. Do we have renter's insurance? And right, can't stress that enough. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But and then really and truly, the first and foremost job is let the experts do their job. So we've got to get fire in there. Let's clear it. Let's let them do their investigation. Let's let PD do their investigation if it's called for. And those reports will normally take, 2 or 3 days to come back. So, you've got your immediate need. We'll put the fire out. Okay, got it. We got a fire department for that. Done. Check. Right? We're taking care of residents because now we've got a building of residents that are scared. So we're reassuring them fires cleared the building. Okay, check. Resident safety. You need to build in a little bit of time for kind of staff decompression because they've just been through it. Right? So we separate, we separate them out and we make sure that, we've got a team that's feeling the fact that we're proud of them. And we're really proud that the plan that we put in place, they put into action, and we've got a success measure there. And then once we get fire they'll tell us, hey, we should have a report back. We've gathered all of this data. We've completed an incident report, which is just the documentation plan of who, what, where, when, why, and how, right? We've sent all these pictures. We're going to take all that compilation of data and we're sending it to our insurance guy. Because depending on, what the dollar amount is for a claim, like depending on the damage, this may or may not need to be a claim.
Right. Okay.
And that can make a difference. A ton of smoke damage, it looks really bad, but it's not actually super expensive to repair, right? So insurance gets involved right away, at least just on the basis of like they know that there's a potential that something could get escalated. We're in the position right now, so it's Friday. This is probably the first potential date that I'll get fire department and police department report back. We've also gone in to take some pictures. So we're able, it's not hard to figure out where in the apartment a fire started. And we've been talking with the residents who lived in that apartment. So we've also gotten a little bit of, information in our own intelligence gathering. Based on that, as well as what comes back from the fire department or the police department, we will be making a determination like, is this, a mechanical failure?
Right.
Fire department's going to help us figure that out pretty quickly. Yeah. Is this a resident error? Because sometimes just accidents happen, right? Sometimes accidents happen. Right. Or is this a resident negligence item? As in, I fell asleep in the middle of my bed with a lit cigarette. Again.
Stories. It happens, but it happens.
It happens, right? Because you're dealing with human beings, so things happen. Yeah. And so based on the outcome of that, our informal plus emergency services formal investigation, we'll know which way we're going. And that could be something as simple as absolutely no penalty to a resident, other than we need to pick them up and relocate them either temporary or permanently. Or it could be faulty to the resident, at which point we're pursuing damages and claims through their renter's insurance policy, potentially even criminal charges.
Okay. So if it was caused by the resident, then DeRosa, in this example, would go ahead and pursue any kind of claims from the resident's renter's insurance company.
You got it.
And renter's insurance, right? I mean, a lot of times it is covering folks' personal property. But I guess to you guys, that doesn't really matter if there's been extensive damage to the unit itself.
Well, so I'm actually going to flip you on that one. So for when you're talking renter's insurance, you can do renter's insurance as a minimum of a liability, which is what I would recommend anybody out there, whether you own 2 units, 20 units, 200 units, require your residents to have renter's insurance with a minimum liability. Now for us, that minimum liability is $100,000. Okay.
Gotcha.
Like that's our worst case scenario. If we have to rebuild, $100,000 for that unit, right? Now the residents themselves, they can obtain renter's insurance through like their car insurance provider. There's a ton, and it is relatively inexpensive, even for that $100,000 liability amount. They can also, if they choose, they can obtain personal property coverage as well. And that's in addition to, and that's up to them. But most property managers, most ownership groups require renter's insurance with a minimum $100,000 liability coverage for exactly kind of this worst case scenario, because, it covers our expenses as ownership and as PMs to have to do any kind of remediation, repair, rebuild work that exists.
Question from one of the attendees today: do you pay for the renter's insurance, or if they don't have it?
So I can tell you what we do, and I can tell you what a lot of other companies do. We, DeRosa, have a requirement that you can provide your own as long as it meets our minimum requirements, or Mr. Resident, Ms. Resident. If you don't, because it's a requirement of your lease, we will put you on what's called a forced place liability coverage. So we're going to pay for it and then turn around and bill you. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Now, God forbid that there is extensive damage not only to their unit, but to the unit next door, unit above, unit below, and your whole section of a building.
Yeah.
Right. Again, if it's a fault of the resident, lit cigarette, fell asleep, the whole nine, and everything else like that.
Yeah.
Like, these things have happened before, right? So again, DeRosa living in this particular case would be pursuing the resident's insurance for the coverage of all the damaged units.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So, folks, the takeaway here is you got to make sure your residents have coverage. You absolutely have to make sure. You're going to be coming out of your pocket, for these damages, and depending on the extent of the damages, it could take a long time to put these units kind of back in play if it's extensive damage, so extensive that a full rental, full gut needs to take place? Terry, do you have to now get a new CO for that particular unit and all the other units that were
You
extensive?
might, because the thing is that you have to remember there's primary and secondary damage. So, I'll use the instance of a fire. Primary damage is from the fire itself. So burned materials, right?
Mhm.
Smoke damage, burned appliances, melted things, right?
Right,
And there's the secondary damage that is caused by the efforts to put out the fire. So,
right,
you're going to have the fire department that may punch holes in your roof to
right.
ventilate. They're going to knock out windows. They're going to flood, that unit with
Mhm.
water and with extinguishers, which
Right,
has a literal trickle down effect into lower units that, were not impacted by the fire, but now have it raining in their apartment, right?
right.
And so depending on the damage, the fire department may come back and condemn a unit. And they're like, okay, this is not a livable situation in its current state, which means that, they're depending on your locality, there may be, and depending on the damages, there may be permitting and a new CO that's required once you do all the remediation and repair work to get it back up to where it needs to be a rentable unit again.
Gotcha.
It's a
Gotcha.
process.
It is a process. It is a big process.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. A question from outside. Have you ever sued a resident personally for the damage?
So I've had two experiences. One, I have pressed criminal charges on more than two handfuls of residents, either for intentional damages that they've done in an apartment, and it typically is surrounding like an eviction related or a non-renewal. They've violated one of the basic tenets of the lease. And so we've said, hey, listen, we don't want you to live here anymore. Right. Sometimes the courts have to get involved. And
Yep.
they pull kind of like the little kid knee-jerk reaction of like, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna mess up your stuff. Well, great. I've got a recourse for that. It's called criminal charges.
Yep.
And then we're also going to pursue you potentially in small claims, and then also through a collections company, because that's the other really good tool to use when you've got charges that are of an intentional base. Okay.
Got it. If the resident winds up getting displaced because the unit has been burned so bad, and like you said, fire comes in and they have to, water it down. Now it's time to go ahead and place the resident to another unit, potentially on the property if one's available.
Right.
And if not, then someplace else. How does that work? Let's say if the resident is getting placed in another unit on the property, is the resident now paying rent on that unit that they are getting placed into, and so on and so forth. They probably lost a lot of their own personal property. They're displaced. They got to go to work. They got to go to school. They're pissed off and everything else like that. Damn near every personal possession that they had has been burned down.
Right.
And all we're doing is that we're giving them a unit to live in, and they think perhaps that we're going now to allow them to live in that unit rent free. But we're saying, well, free don't really live here.
Well, and so the thing is that like, I wish it were as black and white as, it would make it easier if it was that concrete. There's a lot of stickiness that gets involved in these situations, right? Okay. So you have, a resident that fell asleep with a lit cigarette or a candle that's not even supposed to be in the apartment to begin with. If I have a unit to put them into, I'm going to, because in fairness, when you're an owner, when you're on the asset management side, when you're on the PM side, like you're housing people. And so that we take that seriously, right? Like it's a thing that we do that has a major impact on somebody else's life. It matters to us. And so if I've got another unit that I can put them into, I am, with a couple provisions. One, we're getting another renter's insurance policy covered for that unit right now.
I bet we are.
like right now, right? And the beautiful thing about being able to do it online is that you can that quickly. Right. Two, we're also going to sign a lease right now. Okay. Because from a legal standpoint, that's their legal ability to be in that unit. Right. And it's our accountability for them. If I don't have a unit, maybe I've got a sister property. I will say in the case of natural disasters and fires, a fantastic resource that is usually called in by the emergency services is the Red Cross. So they are amazing. They will assist with housing, temporary to permanent. They will assist with clothing, food, shelter, all the things. Okay. But also, and this is where it can kind of become a difficult conversation, this is where you've got to remind the residents, this is what you have renter's insurance for. Okay. Because no different than car insurance, you can get the bare minimum coverage. Yep. And the bare minimum is what it provides you. Or you can get the coverage that provides you, coverage for a rental if your car's in an accident. Right. And, you're going to pay a little bit more, but you have the added benefit should you ever need it. Renter's insurance works the same way. So, I mean, I've had fires where, it was not a mechanical item. It wasn't anything on the asset, the ownership, or the PM. It was a dumb decision, really, by the
Right.
resident. And it was like, well, where are you putting me up? Well, I'm not. And
Oh,
you are going to go because I don't have a unit to give you.
right.
Okay.
Oh,
And you just cost me a gigundo amount of money.
right.
And the 4-letter words that are going on in my brain can't come out of my
Mm,
mouth.
right.
And so you're going to go wherever you choose to go tonight, but
Right.
it's not going to be here. Right. And so those are tough conversations, but it's also part of the deal, right?
Part of the deal.
But
Part of
there
the deal.
there is there is stickiness, and there
Right.
can, as an owner, you can, and PM, you can demonstrate a little bit of flexibility. It's really going to be situational.
Got you. Got you.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So you said at the top, 911 is fire, flood, and blood.
Yeah.
Let's skip over flood a little bit
Okay.
because I'm sure not too different from how you have to deal with a fire.
Yeah.
But now blood.
Yeah.
What goes
So, I
on
mean,
with the blood?
unfortunately, we joke a lot about like bad things come in threes, right?
Very true. Very true.
So I can, in all honesty, tell you that in the course of 2 weeks, we've had a fire and
Okay.
2 resident deaths.
Oh no.
And so this is, it gets into, you want to talk about sticky situations. Okay. This
Yeah.
is a little bit sticky, right?
Right.
Physically
Right.
a little bit sticky when you start talking about bodily fluids. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Like
Okay.
we're going there, Hervé. We're talking about it.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's bring it, baby. It's Friday. Come on, Freedom Friday. Let's go.
Happy Valentine's Day. That's right.
Eric
Um,
Platter. I see where you're
so
going, Eric Platter. I see.
I love it. So, like,
Okay, let's go.
that's it. Like when you're talking about residents' homes, you're talking about all the things that happen in a resident's home. So we get
Okay.
to see, new relationships, and be the place that houses the couple's first home, and welcoming home of first child. And sometimes we are also where a person exits this universe. And it's a tough moment. And it's a tough moment for the community. It's a tough moment for the staff. It's
Right.
obviously an incredibly tough moment, for that resident's loved ones and friends and family and neighbors. And so you got to handle it with as much grace as you handle everything else, because we've got a plan for that. And so one of the key determining factors about how we handle this is, first and foremost, how is it brought to our attention? And so we've got a rule. It's kind of an industry standard. When you get a phone call, like one of our staff did this week, to say, hey, I haven't heard from my family member in a couple days. Can you go check on him?
Mm-hmm.
As much as the good human being in me wants to say, yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
From a legal standpoint, I can't. Right. So we have that family or friend, please call the local PD office. Here's the number. And what you're going to ask for is a welfare check.
Right.
Right. PD will come on site.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're able to make that determination from outside the apartment door.
Right.
Let's just talk real. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
you're not, but you want PD there because from a legal standpoint, you don't know what kind of scene you're walking into.
That's right.
This could be a natural death. This could be not. Okay.
Right.
And so, there's a whole rules and regulations from a legality standpoint that you're going to let PD process that first. Okay.
Right.
It also depends on if there's anybody else on the lease. So one of the things that we'll see a lot is that, you have a parent and child duo. One lives there, one doesn't, but they have legal access.
Right.
So, like we want to be able to preserve all the items in the apartment, because you don't want that family member that has a key but isn't on the lease to like come in and take things, right? Because we've got to be able to abide by the same timeline as probate court.
Yeah.
And that matters.
Yeah.
If there's nobody on the lease with that resident, the deceased resident, we will change the locks.
Yeah.
And because we're trying to be good stewards of not only our asset being that unit, but also that person's belongings. And we want to be able to participate in the correct way on the legal form through probate, through the will, all the good stuffs and things. Okay.
Gotcha.
If there is somebody on the lease, then we need to make them aware. We are not the ones that are calling to tell them that this has happened to
Right.
so-and-so and their family. Okay.
Right.
You let the authorities do that. You wait
Okay.
for the clearance from the authority. They will tell you, and you maintain contact and communication. And they will tell you, hey, we were able to talk to you next of kin, or this person, they've been made aware. We try to give a grace of a couple days. We are not calling them to go, it's the 3rd of the month and your rent was due.
Right.
That's
Right.
not that conversation. Okay.
Right.
But this is a decision for the owners and the asset managers and the PMs out there. Like, do you let them out of their lease?
Right.
We do.
We do.
We do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, especially right if that lease, I don't know, however it's written up, but I mean, if the lease payments were being made by both parties,
Yep.
right, and they needed to, right, if both people's working and everything else like that,
Yep.
someone passes away, and now the sole survivor, the resident in that particular unit, he or she just can't continue to make that rent payment on their own anymore. They just don't have that kind of income to make it, kind of thing.
Well, and it's either they don't have the income, but we're also like almost every resident in that situation that I've ever talked to, they don't want to be in that apartment anymore. So we're going to let them go, and that's okay. Right. And we're going to maintain that clear communication with them throughout the entire process. Right. There does become some situations, unfortunately, where we do have to gain access to either remove, dispose, or very quickly remediate some items so that they do not impact adjacent apartments below specifically, typically. Okay. And so we will need to make, both authorities aware, as well as any identified next of kin or anybody that's on the apartment. I highly suggest that you seek an attorney consult when doing this, prior to doing this. Right. So that you've got somebody legally. But there are times when we will have to remove personal items and or furniture, potentially flooring, carpet, sometimes subfloor, just to make sure that, it's a safe place for people to be able to enter and take their personal belongings out of. Also, we're maintaining, a sanctity of safety, health-wise, and standard of code for their, the surrounding apartments.
Tara, if the sole survivor moves out, understandably so, they don't want to live there anymore. Their loved one potentially is passed away. They don't want to live there anymore, and they get all their stuff. I get it.
Yeah. Now,
the next person that's going to be renting out that unit.
Yeah.
Are they being told?
No.
I would want to know. Wait. You're not telling them nothing?
There are differences.
I find out a couple of months down the road from my next door neighbor, hey, do you know what happened to the last person that was living in the unit that you currently are renting? No, tell me what happened. I would ask to get moved out to another unit, and if I don't get moved out from another unit, I'm asking for a discount on my rent.
And it's so funny because when you come to me with, bear in mind, like, yes, you are my oasis and you are my favorite. But when you come to me with that BS, you and I are going to have a very different conversation, right? So thank you. Vacant, not haunted. That's right. There are differences. There are differences from what a broker single family home needs to disclose versus what we just have to legally disclose in apartments. Okay. Violent crime items, they happen in multifamily. And thanks to, the internet and Freedom of Information Act and all that stuff, as, a prospective renter doing due diligence about where you want to live, go look that up. Yeah. Okay. If you come to me and be like, Mrs. Kravitz next door, she told me that the guy here died and I want out. I'm going to tell you, absolutely, you can break your lease. There's a fee for that because that's in the lease that you signed. It's called an early termination addendum.
Right.
I will accommodate that as soon as you pay me my monies. Right. The thing to remember, and that, and this is, again, it goes back to that conversation. Like, when you deal in multifamily, like I said, we are dealing with a variety of situations, a variety of people, a variety of decades of lives that have been spent in these apartments. Okay. Right. We don't expect a 1985 vintage apartment, even if it's been renovated, to look like the walls are perfect, because they're not. Right? These apartments hold decades and multitudes of lives of stories. And sometimes that includes death.
Yep.
Sometimes it includes birth.
Yes.
Sometimes it includes a really drunk frat party that gets out of hand. Like, it can include a whole bunch of these things. We just say, like, you're not the first person to live here. Right. You're not going to be the last one either. Right? And it is what it is. I will say is I do not get a whole lot of people that ask that question.
Really?
Really don't.
Well, this is how the brain works sometimes and everything else like that. Listen, it would not be the first question I'm asking as I'm moving into it, but as I'm moving in, and again, my next door neighbor, the neighbor downstairs, like, what happened over there last year? Right? What happened over there a few months ago? I'm going to slow play moving into that unit. I'm going to slow roll it. I'm going to go back to the leasing manager. I'm like, hey, so how about unit number 32? Is that one available?
Well, and it's a possibility. But, like, bear in mind, those are all questions that you should figure out before I give you keys and you legally take possession of the apartment, because now you're on the hook.
Now I'm on the hook.
That's right.
Now I'm on the hook. I'm just saying, I think I wish you would have been shared with me. That's all I'm saying.
I promise to let you know next time. I'm not sure.
I'll think it. I doubt that's going to happen. Okay, listen. Any questions from the field? Come on, let's bring on the
What do you got?
Emergencies do happen. How to respond to emergencies on your property in 911, fire, flood, and blood. What's going on? I'll tell you on the flood, is it treated much different than a fire in a particular unit, the flooding of a unit.
Mhm.
Again, whether it is caused by a resident or a plumbing failure on the part of the
Well,
landlord.
so there can be vast differences in reaction based on what's actually causing the flood, right?
Okay. Right.
Like there are in our industry, we talk about three different types of water. There's natural
Okay.
water, rain, okay?
Yep. Right.
Like rainwater that, can access a lower unit if you've got, a foundational issue, something natural in that regard.
Right.
Then there's gray water,
Yep. Mm.
and then there's black water.
Mm. Never
Okay?
even heard that term before. Never even heard that term before.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
See, this is why
Yeah.
we talk and hang out, man. Right? So
I'm learning so much here.
black water this is where it goes full circle, people. We're back to the wet boots and the gloves, right? Because we're not messing around with that.
Right.
Usually that's due to plumbing, sewage, backflow issues. Please bring professionals in for that, right? Like, yes, you and a site team and a vendor can evacuate that water, but inherently due to the contents of that water, you're going to want some further treatment. And so now we need things like dehumidifiers and mold reduction and taking a look at drywall and gutting it out until you reach like 2-3 inches above clear drywall. So you may be down to studs. You may have to replace those. But the key thing is that you deal with what it is. You get as much information as possible. You get as much determination to figure out how big this issue is. Is it just contained to one unit, or is it all 4 units on the first floor? Right. And then you triage it and you attack it appropriately. And all the while you're keeping your residents kept up to date with communication so that they know what to expect. They've already been through enough surprises. We try to make it a little bit easier on them. And then you keep them posted about what's going to come next and what that's going to look like.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Is there an argument? Do you take it much into consideration? I'm going a little bit off the beaten track here in regards to vintage of the properties and things like that. How much in your due diligence, right? Before you obviously acquire the property, how much of your due diligence can you pick up that says, hey, time out, hold up, we may not want to pursue acquiring this property because heightened risk of, be it floodings, fires. And it could be just the vintage of the property itself, or there's been a history of one or both of those issues taking place at that property before, especially if mechanical and or plumbing related.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, like when we're doing DD walks, like when you've done your market analysis, we've done the initial underwriting, and you're like, okay, it's time. I'm sending you out.
Right.
It's always so funny to me because like I'll tour, we're typically touring with a broker, and all the things that the broker is saying to me, like, oh, this is a fantastic selling feature in the unit or the building, or look at this beautiful fireplace, and don't you love this vintage chimney, and look how close we are to the pond. And meanwhile, like in my head, I'm just like red flag, red flag, red flag, because all I'm seeing are potential liabilities and plans of action that I'm going to need to have prepared for in advance of this situation occurring. And so, I mean, it's a big factor when we're looking at assets, particularly older assets. You're looking at plumbing lines, because with people come dumb decisions sometimes, and you'd be amazed at what people flush down a toilet. I know more supervisors that I can count on 2 hands that have a collection of the craziest things they've seen flushed down a toilet, right?
Yeah.
And so plumbing factors into that. As much of a selling feature as it is to have natural wood burning fireplaces, that just screams nightmare in my book. So, like you show me a property that's got an individual wood burning stove, and I'm like, great, we're gutting it out because I want it gone.
To go. The first thing to go. Yeah, no doubt about it.
But it plays a factor. The thing is that like when you're evaluating properties, you're evaluating them for, your potential upside, right? You need to also be factoring in your evaluation for what are the things that are most probable to cause me problems.
Yeah.
And then you're creating a plan of action. And sometimes those are hurdles that you can absolutely overcome because you've got the right people in the right seats and you've got that preventative maintenance plan down. And sometimes they're just not. And if they're not, it's okay to walk away from that deal. Like I cannot stress that enough, because the last thing that you want to be in is a situation that you are not prepared for.
Right. So. No, that makes sense. That's very helpful. It's very helpful.
Yeah.
When going back to the 911s, what is there any kind of discussions that you can have with your residents, either when they're taking the keys as they're signing that lease, while they're living there, to help the property from a preventative standpoint,
Yeah.
right? In regards to, hey, folks, the obvious, please don't go to sleep with a lit cigarette, for example, like preventative stuff,
Right.
preventative stuff,
Like
right?
basics, like don't let your side hustle be a meth lab, right?
Or if so, just not in your unit, not
Or
in your unit.
that's right?
Go across the street.
So, and that's the thing, like just maybe not here on my property ever,
Right.
right?
Gotcha.
So I mean, yeah, it to me it all goes back to setting kind of the expectation line, and you do that in the lease because most leases, most good leases have kind of that expectation of here's what I need my resident to abide by, and here's what me as the owner, landlord, property manager, I'm going to abide by.
Right.
And then you can create, I mean, like you can create a resident handbook, which is what a lot of my communities do, or they have specific addendums within their lease that address like, hey, the following items should not be flushed down the toilet. Now, like the perfume bottle and the Tonka truck, those are kind of givens.
Right.
But we do want to say like, hey, feminine products, trash can, not toilet, right? We understand that the wipes say that they're disposable and flushable. They're not. Don't do it. Diapers, no, right?
No, definitely not.
And we talk to people about garbage disposals.
Right.
That you can always tell who's a garbage disposal virgin because those are always the people that are like, I don't understand why you pulled a full potato out of my garbage disposal. Oh no, right? So you can teach people in advance. And really and truly that goes back to training and educating your residents through that process. If you are somebody that's into social media, teach people how to plunge a toilet. Provide a plunger as part of their move-in gift.
That's right. That's right. I do know PMs that do that. You get a plunger when you they give you a plunger and they give you a light bulb just in case the light goes off as you're plunging.
Cover the basics.
Because it sucks to plunge in the dark. So now you have a light bulb. You replace the light bulb and you get back to plunging.
That's right. So it's teach your residents what it is that you expect. Talk them through it. I think that you'll find out that they're receptive because the last thing they want is you having to show up at 3:30 in the morning at their house anyhow. So walk them through it, but hold them accountable.
Right. And just to be clear, I believe I know the answer to this question. Now, let's say that frat party you talked about. I don't know why you used the term frat party. Maybe you have an experience or something that happened at one of our
properties. Wasn't me. It was a friend of mine. That's right.
There we go. Okay. So frat party inside a unit. Okay. Yeah. Well, frat party inside a unit. So it's not the resident, but it's one of the residents' friends that went buck wild and crazy and tried to hang from a chandelier, pulled down the wire struck the bed and fire, right? Nobody hurt. Now, the resident's going to say, it wasn't me, it was my buddy.
Yeah, well, the resident signed a lease that says they're responsible for the actions that occur in their apartment and by any of their guests.
Oh, goodness. We're not friends anymore.
That's it, man.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
That seems like a good place to call it, right?
Yeah.
Refer back to your lease, guys.
All right. I get you. Hey, listen, Tara, guess what, man? We're coming up at the end here. It's always so sad. I mean, it was a quick hour. My goodness. But I learned a lot. Natural water, gray water, black water. Let me go ahead and sum this up. My sum this up is you call 911, call the fire department. On a fire, flood, and blood. If there's a fire, call the damn fire department. The fire department's going to come. They're going to do their thing. Police department's going to come. They're going to write up the reports and so on and so forth. Yeah. They document everything. We don't know who's at fault right now. We don't know the issue. We'll find out later. Document everything. And when you document everything, share absolutely everything with your insurance company. You want to be on top because the insurance company's going to be coming after you. The insurance company's either going to pay out or they're going to go after another insurance company, most likely the residents, depending on who truly is at fault. And require your renters to have liability coverage of a minimum of $100,000 just in case.
That's right.
You never know. You never, ever know. And last but not least, carry with you at all damn times, besides your cell phones, those wet boots and gloves, okay? Wet boots and gloves because an emergency is an emergency and you never know. And it absolutely sucks that you have to run to an emergency and you don't have your wet boots, you don't have your gloves. Now you're soaked and you're pissed off and it's just a bad day.
Just wet socks, man. That's it. Nobody likes wet socks. All right, so Hervé, I've got a question for you. If somebody's watching and they like this and they're getting stuff out of this and they've got tons more questions, where else can they go? Because last time I checked, we might have a program or two for people that are kind of digging this and interested in this.
Well, I will tell you where they can go. They can go to, I'm going to tell you where I think that they can go. See, I was going to say that. You might have been thinking of something else. I was going to say this. I was saying this too. So they go to derosagroup.com/accelerator. derosagroup.com. I'm going to spell accelerator. ACCELERATOR. derosagroup.com/accelerator. You're going to find so much information on our website about Listen, you're going to have now real full-time access with Tara, no Justin, just Tara, with myself, with Matt, with our marketing manager that works closely with our producer extraordinaire behind the scenes here, Nubiko Ray, and as well as our underwriter, Kate Patel, right? So you're going to have access to all of us. We've done so many training modules, even on topics such as this, and so much more. 6 hours a week of hours, office hours with ourselves, with everybody that I just mentioned, that you'll be able to come on, ask questions, show your underwriting model. If you have questions about property management, if you have questions about how to identify a city's an attractive city to invest in, obviously about raising capital, structuring deals, and so on and so forth. We've got a lot more coming. It's an exciting program. It's a great cost of a program. And folks that have been participating in it, we've already some people transitioning out of 90 days going into the Accelerator Plus will be with us for another 12 months, which only tells me that they can stand us. And that's happy. I'm really happy because I was worried. I was concerned a little bit. I was concerned about it.
We got this.
Yeah. So the 90-day accelerator program. All right, folks, it's right there, bottom of the screen, derosagroup.com/accelerator. Tara, thanks so much for coming on today.
No, thank you.
I hope you're in a better mood today than you were when you were doing those modules with that other guy. Yeah.
Yep. So much.
All right, guys.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. See you. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, Matt Faircloth here. Thank you for listening again to the Cash Flow Digest. I really appreciate you guys doing that. If you guys want to hear more about what DeRosa Group has to offer, go to derosagroup, DEROSA group.com, derosagroup.com online. You can hear about all the great things that we offer from an educational standpoint and passive investment standpoint on our website. See you there. And if you guys want to join our online community, DeRosa Insiders on Facebook, where you can watch this program get recorded every Friday at noon Eastern, and you can come on as even a guest or ask questions on the show. We hope to see you guys on our online community, DeRosa Insiders. See you there.